My sister and I were reborn to the day we were adopted from the orphanage. In the director's office, two parties stood, the Ko family and the Chu family. The three members of the Ko family were immaculately dressed. The man wore a suit and leather shoes, while the woman was adorned with expensive jewelry. Their only son, Victor Ko, was in his high school uniform, but his feet sported a pair of global limited edition sneakers. They were the Ko family, the most illustrious family in Jiang City. Mr. Ko was a business magnate whose company paid the largest taxes in Jiang City, and Mrs. Ko was a prominent socialite, frequently seen at charity galas and jewelry auctions alongside famous celebrities. Their son, Victor Ko, was known as the Prince of Jiang City. In comparison, the Chu family beside them seemed truly impoverished. Their hands were calloused from hard labor, and although the clothes they wore were their best, a distinct scent of unwashed sweat still clung to them. According to the director's introduction, both husband and wife worked at Jiang City's #1 middle school, the husband as a janitor and the wife as a cleaning staff member. In my previous life, my younger sister Mandy had chosen the Ko family without a moment's hesitation. This time, however, almost as if afraid of being beaten to the punch, she eagerly rushed into the cleaning lady's arms. "Mom, please take me. I want to be your daughter." "Then from now on, I'll call you Mandy Chu." Amidst my sister's excitement, I walked towards the Ko family. Just like that, the adoption choices were finalized, and we were taken away by our respective families. As we left the orphanage, I overheard the director muttering, "Strange, Mandy has always been the pickiest child. Among all the previous visitors looking to adopt, she wouldn't even spare a glance at those in ordinary clothes. But this time, when a truly wealthy family arrived, why didn't she choose them?" The director didn't understand why. But I did. In my previous life, my sister had gone to great lengths to be adopted by the Ko family and become Mandy Konin. She believed a life as a pampered princess awaited her. Not to mention, Victor Ko, the Prince of Jiang City, became her older brother. You see, the common trope in romance novels features a rich young master and his adopted sister, living under the same roof day and night, making it easy for feelings to blossom between them. However, Mandy never expected that Victor Ko, far from being a tender adoptive brother, would utterly despise her. "I hate snobs the most in this life. Don't think I can't see through your scheming hypocrite act. You only came into this family for our money, didn't you?" At home, Victor Ko bullied Mandy Konin. At school, he led a group of others in continuing to torment her. Even when Mr. and Mrs. Ko learned of it, they merely gave a perfunctory scolding. They held no genuine affection for Mandy. They had only adopted her because a fortune-teller had told Mr. Ko that taking in a daughter would bring him good fortune for the next 10 years. Between an adopted daughter and their biological son, Mr. and Mrs. Ko naturally loved their son more. Victor Ko bullied Mandy on one hand, but on the other he was exceptionally kind to me, the one adopted by the Chu family. He saw that I earned scholarships, ranked first in exams, attended school during the day, and helped my mother clean in the evenings. Despite a difficult life, I never complained. This student, Celia Chu, is truly interesting. It was just like in an idol drama, the arrogant rich boy falling for the poor yet unyielding pure-hearted innocent. Later, after Mr. and Mrs. Ko passed away during the distribution of the inheritance, Victor Ko led a team of lawyers who manipulated Mandy Ko, leaving her with nothing. She left the house empty-handed. A few months later, Victor Ko married me. At our wedding, he even declared openly, "Celia Chu, from this day forward, everything I own is yours." Unfortunately, I never got to enjoy Victor Ko's wealth. A few days later, Mandy, driven to madness, ran me over with her car, killing me. This time, my sister chose the Chu family without hesitation. Although they had no vast fortune, their family was free from strife. She could enjoy the wholehearted love of her parents and grow up in a happy environment. With this destiny, she would garner the pity and protection of a rich young master and ultimately achieve a fairy tale wedding. She smiled and told me, "Sister, this time, it's my turn to be the idol drama heroine. It's time you experienced what I had to endure." Mandy's prediction wasn't wrong. In fact, Victor Ko's malicious bullying manifested even earlier than in my previous life. At school, I was forced headfirst into the swimming pool, surrounded by the grotesque laughter of a group of boys. Just as I was about to run out of oxygen, someone grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and pulled me up. Victor Ko smiled as he looked at me. "If you want my family's money, it's simple. Drink all the water in the toilet. You take 1 gulp, and I'll give you 100 yuan. How about it?" The onlookers cheered excitedly. I looked at Victor Komun. The person who had once tenderly declared his love for me in my previous life was now unscrupulously taking his anger out on me. But Victor Ko wasn't looking at me. His gaze flickered past me, settling on something behind me. I knew that Mandy Chu was diligently wiping the floor there. Isn't that Mandy Chu? Why is she cleaning the floor? Someone followed his gaze and explained to Victor Ko, Mandy Chu's mother works as a cleaning staff member at the school. During the day, she attends classes, and at night, she helps her mother with work. A flicker of surprise appeared in Victor Ko's eyes, followed by pity. He called out to Mandy Chu, "Hey, it's really cold, don't clean. No one's going to check anyway." Mandy Chu straightened her back, tossing her dark hair back to reveal a delicate face with a stubborn expression. She shook her head. "No. If someone comes to inspect and finds the floor isn't clean, my mother will have 100 yuan deducted." I know 100 yuan means nothing to a young master like you, but for my family, it's a week's worth of food money. After saying that, Mandy Chu bent down and continued cleaning the floor. In truth, Mandy Chu's intentions were crystal clear. With so many floors to clean, she deliberately chose this spot precisely to appear before Victor Kumbin. She even intentionally let her hair down, creating a beautiful angle to look her best. Unfortunately, Victor Ko fell right into her trap. Sure enough, Victor Ko walked over, helped Mandy Chu stand up, snatched the cleaning rag from her hand, and tossed it to his attendant. "You guys, help her clean the rest." He glanced at Mandy Chu's hands, red and chapped from the cold, thought for a moment, then took off his jacket and draped it over her. "It's late. How will you get home later?" "By bicycle." "Cycling in such cold weather?" Victor Ko was stunned, then said without a shred of doubt, "Go wait downstairs. I'll have the driver take you home." Mandy Chu, protected by Victor Ko, left. Before she went, she didn't forget to quietly turn back and flash a sarcastic smile at me. A moment later, everyone dispersed, leaving only me by the swimming pool. I struggled to climb out, using my sleeve to wipe the dripping water from my hair. "Use this." A cool voice rang out from behind me. I turned around to find it was Liu Song, our class monitor. She was a quiet, diligent girl who always wore long-sleeved shirts, regardless of spring, summer, autumn, or winter. In my previous life, she had also tried to help Mandy Chu when Mandy was being bullied. She offered Mandy Chu a handkerchief and persuaded Mandy Chu to expose Victor Ko's bullying. Mandy Chu slapped her hand away. "What do you know? He's my brother!" Back then, Mandy Chu was still dreaming of making Victor Ko fall for her. So afterward, Liu Song no longer paid her any mind, quietly walking away. Later, as graduation approached, Liu Song committed suicide. It was only then that I learned her family was very poor. Her grandmother had been bedridden for years, and her father was a gambler who not only abused her, but also sold her to pay his debts. Now she stood beside me, a clean handkerchief in her hand. I was slightly surprised, then took it. She didn't say much, turning and walking away. Perhaps it was because she felt she had nothing to say to the Ko family's eldest daughter. Seeing her back about to disappear, I suddenly spoke up. "Class monitor!" Her footsteps paused. I scratched my head and said, "There's something, since I just transferred schools, I still don't know my way around. Where's the cafeteria? Could you take me there, me?" On the cafeteria table were 4 dishes and 1 soup, braised ribs, steamed meat with egg, cola chicken wings, stir-fried cabbage, and winter melon soup. This was indeed the best high school in Jiang City. The food in the cafeteria was truly a source of pride. I scratched my head again and said, I accidentally ordered too much." "It's so embarrassing I might waste it. You probably haven't had dinner either, right? Shall we eat together?" Liu Song fell silent for a moment, then finally picked up her chopsticks and began to eat in small bites. I looked at the slender wrist exposed from her school uniform sleeve. Truthfully, girls like the class monitor were the ones who truly needed help. But because they weren't beautiful and didn't cry out in pain, they would simply become withered weeds in the garden of youth, not even significant enough to be the female leads in idol dramas. In this life, I didn't just want to save myself, I wanted to save her too. After steadying my mind, I said, "Oh, linear algebra is too hard. I don't understand anything." "Class monitor, since you're so good at studying, why don't you tutor me?" Liu Song nibbled on a braised rib, a surprised expression on her face. "Do we know each other?" I didn't give her a chance to say no. I grabbed her shoulder and cheerfully suggested, "It's settled then. I'll pay you for tutoring." I gave a portion of my living expenses to the class monitor, euphemistically calling it advanced tutoring fees. She stared at the several crisp red 100 yuan bills in the envelope, too stunned to speak. In truth, whether in my previous life or this one, the Ko family never treated their adopted daughter poorly regarding food, clothing, and basic living expenses. But for Liu Song, the small sum I gave was enough for her to buy medicine for her grandmother and pay hospital bills. It could even be enough to rent a small house off campus to escape her cruel father. After setting a time for our tutoring session the next day, I went home. The luxurious villa was empty. Mr. Ko was out attending a social banquet, and Mrs. Ko was at the beauty salon for a skincare session. As for Victor Ko, he was probably having dinner at the Chu family's house. In my previous life, Victor Ko had the driver take me home, and when the Chu couple saw him, they warmly invited him in for dinner. Then, just like the standard plot in idol dramas, that dinner made the young master, who had been accustomed to a cold and affluent life since childhood, feel the warm affection of a poor family. Mr. and Mrs. Chu always wore gentle smiles on their faces, a small shabby room, yet so cozy. All of it made Victor Ko yearn for it, and he grew even fonder of the poor, innocent darling who had grown up in such a family. At this moment, even though he and Mandy Chu were likely eating plain, unappetizing food, they must have been very happy deep down. I slowly put on my Hermes nightgown, washed my face with Chanel cleanser, and ate a bowl of rock sugar oatmeal given to me by the nanny, a sneer curling my lips. No one knew that the Chu family was indeed poor, but they were far from simple. That couple preferred sons over daughters and originally wanted to adopt a son. But there were no healthy, non-disabled boys in the orphanage, so they decided the next best option was to choose a beautiful daughter who could marry a rich husband later. Seeing Victor Ko bring their daughter home, the couple's hearts raced with excitement, and they immediately ushered their future son-in-law into the house to entertain him. The so-called family affection, the so-called coziness, it was all just an act. After all, if they wanted to impress a young master from a wealthy family, this was the only thing they could do. In my previous life, when I told them I didn't want to marry Victor Ko, my adoptive mother locked me in my room, and my adoptive father beat me almost to death with a table leg and a belt. Mandy thought she had ascended to heaven in this life, but she didn't know that in this world, heaven isn't real. The Ko family was a wealthy hell, while the Chu family was a poor hell, and who could crawl out of hell alive depended on their own capabilities. In the days that followed, Victor Ko's malice grew stronger. When I opened the lunchbox the nanny had prepared for me, it was filled with stapler pins. I also found dead spiders in my facial cleanser and toothpaste. Dresses in my closet had cigarette burn holes, and every time I was startled and looked up, I would see Victor Ko's sinister smile. He would tell me, "Celia Ko, you deserve this." Victor Ko thought I would cry, but I just calmly discarded the stapler pins, tossed the spiders into the trash, and folded the dress before putting it away. After that, the smile on Victor Ko's face disappeared. He stared at me, gritting his teeth and saying, "Let's see how long you can keep up the act." Fortunately, this time, although I had to bear Victor Ko's malice, all of the Ko family's resources were now focused on me. My days of juggling school by day and work by night were over. Instead, I had a nanny to look after me and a driver to take me wherever I needed to go, allowing me to focus solely on my studies. In my past life, if I wanted to buy extracurricular study materials, I had to save money for a very long time, all while guarding against my adoptive father stealing it to buy alcohol and gamble. Now, my wardrobe was filled with designer dresses from famous brands, and my jewelry box contained pieces from Van Cleef and Arpels and Cartier. All of these were gifts from Mrs. Ko, and I didn't have to pay a single cent. Furthermore, at the beginning of each month, I received an allowance of 50,000 yuan in cash and a credit card with a 100,000 yuan limit. If I ever ran out, all I had to do was inform the butler, and within half an hour, funds would be transferred to my card. The hardships I had endured in my previous life were now entirely concentrated on Mandy Chu. I watched her sleep through classes, a consequence of helping her adoptive mother work at night and simply not getting enough rest. Gradually, she stopped doing her homework and submitted blank papers for tests. In my past life, I relied on black coffee to get by. When I was truly sleepy, I'd even jab myself with a compass to stay awake, forcing myself to study hard. But Mandy Chu, in her past life, had lived as a pampered young lady, lacking in spirit and perseverance, not to mention her complete disregard for her studies. She believed that becoming the fiancé of the Ko family's crown prince was far more valuable than being admitted to Tsinghua University or Peking University. Thus, Mandy Chu dedicated all her efforts to making Victor Ko like her more. She paid no attention during math class, secretly writing entries in a diary dedicated solely to Victor Ko. She skipped dance practice to sneak out of the school gates and go stargazing with Victor Ko in the countryside. As a result, on the eve of the dance performance, she sat outside the practice room, crying. I suspected Mandy Chu had specifically studied how idol drama heroines cried. She gazed up at a 45-degree angle, eyes welling up with tears, stubbornly trying not to let them fall. Naturally, Victor Ko happened to pass by and saw her. The moment Victor Ko asked her what was wrong, Mandy Chu's long-suppressed tears finally cascaded down. She flung herself into Victor Ko's arms and burst into sobs. Victor, I'm no longer qualified to be on stage. All the other girls in the class get to perform, but Celia Ko won't let me participate. Victor Ko, who already detested me, immediately flared up in anger upon hearing this. Why not? Mandy Chu bit her lip, trying her utmost to stop crying, but she couldn't help but sob. She said my mother is a cleaner and my father is a janitor. She even said I couldn't afford the costume, so I wasn't worthy of being on stage. Victor Ko's expression grew increasingly grim. He looked at Mandy Chu, who was sobbing uncontrollably, and said in a low voice, Isn't it just a performance costume? I'll buy it for you. Mandy Chu shook her head, saying with a mix of righteousness and pitifulness, No, a costume costs 800 yuan. I can't accept such an expensive gift from you. Victor Ko couldn't help but feel both angry and heartbroken. How dare she, Celia Ko? He exclaimed, filled with rage. Mandy Chu shook her head, tears still dripping. She is your sister, after all, the eldest young lady of the Ko family. Several buildings in the school were donated by your family, and your father is still the honorary principal of the school. Even if the teachers knew she was bullying me, what could they do? Mandy Chu failed to notice a reporter who happened to be passing by behind her on an interview assignment at the school. The reporter poked their head out and asked a sensitive question, like a shark smelling blood. Bullying? What kind of bullying? Who's doing the bullying? Things suddenly took a serious turn. In the school's largest meeting room, a crowd had gathered. All were present, the principal, vice principal, dean, and homeroom teacher, along with journalists from various newspapers. Mr. and Mrs. Ko and the Chu family had all arrived. Mr. and Mrs. Chu stood in a corner of the meeting room, tearfully shielding Mandy Chu, their faces etched with indignation and anger. Mr. and Mrs. Ko initially received the call, and, hearing that I was involved in some trouble, were reluctant to come. It wasn't until they heard that even the newly appointed Minister of Education was present that they rushed over. Jiangcheng No. 1 High School was the best high school in the city, and also a model institution for the Ministry of Education. Mr. Ko clearly had an acquaintance with the Minister of Education. As soon as he entered, he walked over to him and casually remarked, "This small matter has truly troubled Minister Li. It's really just children squabbling." But the Minister of Education was very upright and did not accept this dismissive way of speaking. "Mr. Ko, bullying is not always a small matter. I know Celia Ko is your daughter, but here, every child is a student, a young sapling, and I cannot tolerate them being bullied." With that said, Mr. Ko could say no more. He could only force a smile and say, Yes, we don't know what happened. We hope you will investigate thoroughly." Turning back to Mrs. Ko, the two silently exchanged glances. I understood. If it turned out I truly had bullied someone, the Ko family would immediately disown me, their adopted daughter for whom they held no affection, and completely sever all ties with me. If Mr. and Mrs. Ko's attitude was like that, then Victor Ko. He stood beside a sniffling Mandy Chu, whispering words of comfort, occasionally raising his dark eyes to cast a cold glance my way. Seeing that everyone had gathered, the principal addressed Mandy Chu. "Student Chu, please tell us the specifics of the situation." Mandy Chu lifted her red-rimmed eyes and in a low voice repeated what she had told Victor Company. The journalists, upon hearing this, erupted in indignation. The first to speak up stated, "After our preliminary investigation, we found that Celia Ko and Mandy Chu grew up together in a welfare institution and were once considered sisters. Later, Celia Ko was adopted by the Ko group, while Mandy Chu's adoptive parents were merely ordinary school staff. Celia Ko, do you think that just because you entered a wealthy family, you can bully your former friend and snatch opportunities that rightfully belong to her?" Silence fell over the room. The reporters' eyes were fixed on me, and the red dots of their cameras flashed incessantly. No one wanted to miss out on digging deeper. After all, this was a highly sensitive social topic, at a time when social strata were increasingly rigidifying. If the children of the rich continued to seize educational resources rightfully belonging to the poor and obstruct their path to development, it was a subject potent enough to stir considerable public outrage. Not to mention that the main subjects of the news event were Celia Ko and Mandy Chu. It truly made for a dramatic broadcast. The office was so silent you could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, I burst out laughing, the sound abrupt in the stillness. The reporters exchanged glances. "Sir, I've read that all news gathered by a journalist needs to be cross-verified and fact-checked," I began, addressing one. "What have you just done? How could you disregard your professional ethics and rush to report unverified news just to create a sensation?" Immediately, the reporter's face flushed red. I rose, my gaze cold as I pointed at Mandy Chu. "Right now, this news only comes from her, and the whole story is solely what she's told." I looked at Mandy Chu's face, pale and tear-streaked from crying. I had once treated her like a younger sister, but in my past life, she had murdered me out of jealousy. In this life, she was trying to climb higher by bringing me down. If she wanted to harm me, she shouldn't blame me for being ruthless. "Since the reporter is asking me, I'll tell him what I know," I continued. "Mandy Chu is jealous of me. She believes that she and I are no different. She even thinks she's prettier and smarter than me. So why is my life so much better now? Out of envy and hatred, she fabricated this story to slander me." Immediately after this statement was made, Victor Ko directly refuted it. Clearly. What he wanted to say was that Mandy Chu had clearly chosen the impoverished Chu family. Therefore, she couldn't possibly be someone who despises the poor and craves wealth. My statement was clearly nonsensical. But before he could finish his sentence, the principal's office door burst open. Standing outside the door was a slender, short-haired figure, silent and unnoticed like a weed. Our homeroom teacher recognized her. "Liu Song, what are you doing here?" In my past life, at this very time, Liu Song had committed suicide. But in this life, she was still alive and well. She walked step by step towards me, stopping right beside me. She whispered, "I'll testify." Her entrance was so unexpected that the reporters were momentarily stunned. Someone asked, "Classmate, have you come to testify that Mandy Chu was bullied by Celia Ko?" After all, judging by her attire, Liu Song was clearly not from a wealthy family. At a glance, she seemed more like Mandy Chu. Liu Song glanced at the questioner and shook her head. She said, "I'm here to testify for Celia Compton." I looked at Liu Song in surprise. To be honest, I had prepared extensively for today's confrontation, but Liu Song, she wasn't a witness I had prepared. After all, our relationship wasn't particularly close. After I gave her money last time, she had researched tutoring fees on the market, calculated the hourly rate for 1 hour each day, and then returned all the excess money to me. She tutored me in math for 1 hour every day, and precisely on time, she'd grab her bag and run off like a programmed AI robot. In my past life, Liu Song jumped to her death before the college entrance exam. All her hopes rested on getting into a good university and earning money quickly to treat her grandmother's illness. As a result, 1 month before the college entrance exam, her old man lost money gambling, drank several bottles of cheap liquor, and came home to brutally beat Liu Song. Liu Song's right hand was broken. That was her writing hand. No one knew what Liu Song's father did that day, or what the scarred Liu Song went through. When people found her again, this perpetually silent girl had jumped from the rooftop. In this life, although Liu Song and I haven't become friends, I still wanted to save her. So, I hired 2 thugs to put Liu Song's father in the hospital. This way, at least until the end of the college entrance exam, that man wouldn't be able to abuse her anymore. To thoroughly prepare for this matter, I missed evening self-study for the first time. When I returned later, Liu Song, who was responsible for recording attendance, caught me red-handed. She asked me, "Why did you skip evening self-study?" I scratched my head, trying my best to come up with an excuse. After all, I looked lively and healthy. I couldn't fabricate an excuse about illness or trouble, and I certainly couldn't tell her, "I skipped class and beat up your dad." Just then, Liu Song was called by a teacher in the contact room. "Liu Song, someone's calling for you." It was news about Liu Song's father's accident. Liu Song returned 5 minutes later, her expression still as impassive as before. She picked up the attendance sheet again and placed it back on the table. "I'll let it slide this time," she said calmly. "Don't skip class next time." Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief and flop back into my seat to study. Back to the present, Liu Song declared, "I'm here to testify for Celia Ko," in the same calm tone. Only then did I realize she knew about that. Facing everyone's gazes, Liu Song pulled out a stack of documents and placed them on the table. Mandy Chu's face immediately turned ashen. According to school regulations, when entering the dance studio for practice, one had to fill out a form. Any borrowing of the studio or who borrowed it was recorded there. However, this wasn't strictly enforced, and filling it out was a hassle, so almost no one bothered. They would just follow the dance teacher in. No one expected that Liu Song meticulously filled out the form every single time and kept all of them. Thus, before everyone, it was clear to see that out of more than 30 forms, only 2 listed studio usage. In other words, out of over 30 practice sessions, she only participated in 2. Seeing that everyone had clearly read the list, Liu Song then slowly spoke. Mandy Chu claimed Celia Ko mocked her for not having enough money for a costume, which prevented her from performing on stage. But when I told Celia Ko that I couldn't afford a costume and didn't want to participate, Celia Ko still told me to continue practicing. The next day, I found out she had bought costumes for everyone. Mandy Chu also said Celia Ko bullied her because her father was a school janitor and her mother was a cleaning lady. But my father doesn't even have a stable job, so our entire family relies on my grandmother's meager subsidies. Liu Song looked at me. If she bullies the poor, then why didn't she bully me? This revelation stunned everyone present. I sighed silently, took out my phone, and played a video. In this video, everyone could see Mandy Chu constantly missing steps, fumbling, forgetting her moves, and failing to keep up with the rhythm. Among everyone, she was the only one whose movements were blatantly wrong. Indeed, because during the previous rehearsal, she and Victor Ko had gone stargazing. In truth, Mandy Chu hadn't genuinely wanted to participate in this performance, but when she saw me exclude her, she went to Victor Ko and turned the tables, making Victor like her even more and despise me even deeper, that's all. She didn't expect the matter to become so serious. I had witnesses and irrefutable evidence. Originally, I shouldn't have decided to exclude Mandy Chu. However, this dance performance offers special bonus points, and our group also includes 2 gifted students. We were hoping to leverage these bonus points to get into a better university. If I had still allowed Mandy Chu to participate, the futures of those two girls would have been jeopardized. For that reason, I had no choice but to make this decision. After the interview, public perception regarding Mandy Chu and me unexpectedly reversed. Classmates began to believe she suffered from delusions of persecution and started to distance themselves. Don't get too close to Mandy Chu. If a conflict accidentally arises, she'll claim you bullied her because she's poor. Honestly, her family isn't even that poor, are they? Both her parents have respectable jobs. Our school has plenty of poor students who receive student loans, and I haven't seen any of them crying and complaining about being bullied. Ugh, people who don't put in effort always love to blame fate. Amidst the cacophony of whispers and gossip, Mandy Chu was surprisingly silent. She quietly went through the exam preparation period and caused no trouble until the university entrance exams concluded. Liu Song warned, "Be careful. It's very possible she's preparing to retaliate." I smiled and said, "It's fine. If she bides her time, so can I." I could sense Mandy Chu was secretly plotting something, because at home, Victor Ko's attitude towards me was growing increasingly worse. Previously, when he bullied me, at least he showed some restraint out of consideration for our parents. But now, with the whole family eating, he suddenly tipped a full bowl of chicken soup onto my head. The hot, oily soup immediately splattered onto my face. The nanny beside me gasped and quickly brought me an ice pack and burn ointment. Throughout the entire incident, Mrs. Ko kept her head buried in her soup bowl, pretending not to see a thing. Mr. Ko slightly lifted his head and said to Victor Ko, "Go easy on her. Don't let others think our family is uncivilized." Neither Mr. Ko nor Mrs. Ko cared about me. To them, I was merely an unloved adopted child, brought home on the fortune teller's advice and kept like a money plant to bring good fortune. In my previous life, it wasn't as if Mandy Chu didn't try to curry favor with Mr. and Mrs. Ko and cultivate her relationship with them. But reality proved this approach to be utterly mistaken. When Mr. and Mrs. Ko were busy, they even entrusted their biological child to the nanny. Why would they bother fostering a relationship with an adopted daughter? In wealthy families, talking about emotions is the most meaningless endeavor. Only discussions of benefit yield results. So, I put down the ice pack and calmly said, "Parents, I have something to tell you two. I scored 718 points on the university entrance exam and am the top scorer in the natural sciences stream." As soon as I finished speaking, Mr. Ko and Mrs. Ko simultaneously looked up. Even Victor Ko's eyes widened. I used my chopsticks to slowly pick up a piece of stir-fried kale and ate it, then faced the astonished gazes of the three people at the table and calmly said, "Parents, you previously said that our studies were our own business, so I didn't want to report this. But my teacher just called and said that reporters want to interview you about your parenting experiences, so I wanted to ask if you'd be available." In my previous life, even with a part-time job, my academic performance was still very good. In this life, I was restudying the same material, encountering no obstacles whatsoever, so my scores skyrocketed. Mr. and Mrs. Ko looked at each other. Before this, they had never paid any attention to the university entrance exam. Victor Ko had applied for overseas study in Australia early on and would be sent abroad for university right after graduating high school, without needing to take the entrance exam. As for an adopted daughter like me, they had left my fate to chance and couldn't be bothered to care. No one could have imagined that I would perform so well on the exam. I planned to apply to the Guanghua School of Management at Peking University, and I looked at Mr. Ko, and in my first year, I'll intern in your corporate investment department. Mr. Ko was silent for 2 seconds. When he spoke again, a smile had bloomed on his face. "If that's what you want, then it's excellent." "Celia, congratulations. Sister Lee, bring the red wine from my cellar. Celia must be 18 by now, right? Let's celebrate today." I ignored Victor Ko's gloomy gaze, which was almost dripping with resentment, raised my glass to clink with my parents, and gently thanked them for my upbringing. I had bet correctly. Mr. Ko and Mrs. Ko wouldn't care about an ordinary adopted daughter. But what if that adopted daughter was the top scorer in the university entrance exam? That was family glory, a symbol of the parents' successful upbringing, and a beacon of hope for the future. Mr. and Mrs. Ko were overjoyed. They opened several bottles of red wine from their collection, scheduled the interview day with me, and then returned to their rooms to rest in a state of tipsy contentment. Only I and Victor Ko remained at the dining table. The light from the crystal chandelier shone on Victor Ko's dark, indistinct face. He had inherited Mrs. Ko's looks, with a handsome nose and striking, deep-set brows, indeed resembling a handsome but arrogant young master. Now he was looking at me with those beautiful eyes, his gaze cold. "Celia Ko, do you think you can become a member of my family this way?" I stood up, politely adjusted my chair back into place, then leaned close to Victor Ko's ear and whispered, "Brother, please take another look at the situation. Right now, it's your parents who are actively trying to make me part of the family." The day I returned to school to pick up my transcript, I ran into Mandy Chu. She stood in a dark corner watching me, her face a mixture of envy, bewilderment, and deep resentment. I knew she had just watched the video clip of Mr. Ko, Mrs. Ko, and me being interviewed together. In the video, Mrs. Ko had her arm around my shoulder while Mr. Ko spoke with the host. The host praised him for being both a successful businessman and an excellent parent. Finally, our family of 3 took a photo together, looking exactly like a perfect family from an advertisement. This was something Mandy Chu had never achieved in her previous life. She looked at me, her voice low and furious. "What trick did you use?" I shrugged. "Diligent study and daily progress. Do you believe that?" Then I turned and walked away. Mandy Chu couldn't believe it, but that was the only way I did things. From behind me, I heard Mandy Chu softly say, "Even with your parents' love, it's useless. The one Victor Ko loves is me." Excellent. Isn't that how it always goes in idol dramas? The female lead invariably sticks by the male lead, even if their parents disapprove, even if they have to defy the whole world, they must be together. I wished her well. 10 minutes later, I met the male lead of that very idol drama. Victor Ko led a group of people, blocking me in the corridor. By then, teachers and students had already left, and the lecture hall was deserted. Even if I cried for help, no one would hear me. I looked up, a chill running through my heart. Even the surveillance cameras had already been tampered with. They had planned this in advance. Victor Ko stood before me and whispered, "Celia Ko, it's time to wake up from your carp leaping over the Dragon Gate dream. Today I'll show you the consequences for hypocrites." As soon as he finished speaking, the attendant beside him lunged, grabbing my hair and shoving me against the wall. There was a resounding thud, and dust from the wall fell. I was in so much pain I saw stars, but I don't know where I found the strength to kick the attendant hard in the groin. A scream tore through the air, and he crumpled to the ground, his face twisted like a deflated balloon. Victor Ko's expression changed. Just as he was about to order the others forward, I suddenly pulled a bottle of red wine from my bag. Mr. Ko had given it to me at a dinner party, telling me to drink it with my classmates. Now I smashed the bottle against the wall. Red liquid and shards of glass flew everywhere. Then I raised the broken bottle, pointing its sharp edges at the group of boys in front of me. "Come on!" I roared. My hair was disheveled and covered in dirty wall dust. Warm liquid trickled down my chin from my nose. It must have been blood. I didn't know how crazy I looked at that moment, but clearly these dozen or so male students were intimidated by me. For a moment, none of them dared to step forward. I wiped my nosebleed with my hand, a smile on my face. "Hypocrite? Victor Ko, you certainly know how to pick your words." "All right, I'm a hypocrite. And you? You're righteous." "I may be a hypocrite, but at least I donate money to save lives." "What about our righteous young master Ko? Who have you ever helped?" You only help your beloved little white flower, don't you?" I looked into the distance and saw Mandy Chu biting her lip and trying to hide. Actually, she didn't need to hide. I'd already seen her. Victor Ko was about to teach me a lesson. How could she miss such a good show? My nosebleed kept flowing, and I couldn't wipe it all away, so I didn't bother. Looking at Victor Ko, then at the dozen people behind him, I calmly smiled. "Victor Ko, you brought so many people here, creating such a huge commotion. You'd better not let me survive and return today. Otherwise, the smile vanished from my face. If you let me leave alive, I'll drag you down to hell with me. Victor Ko's face turned pale. As Mandy Chu had once said, Mr. Ko was the honorary principal of the school, and the Ko family's business was thriving. Victor Ko bullying classmates at school, as long as there wasn't real trouble, many teachers would turn a blind eye. But Victor Ko didn't have the guts to kill someone in school. He stared at me for a long time, then said in a low voice, "For a scheming girl like you, death would be a kindness." I chuckled. "A crime of scheming, you say? Do you want to know what real scheming looks like?" Looking at Victor Ko, a trembling sense of delight filled my heart. Finally, I could say it. I said word for word. "The people who came to investigate the bullying incident, I invited them." In that instant, Victor Ko's and Mandy Chu's pupils dilated. "You all thought it was just a coincidence? You thought reporters would immediately come to school to investigate just because of a random online comment?" I pointed to myself and smiled. "I led those reporters here. I wrote anonymous letters to several newspapers reporting on a serious bullying incident at Jiangcheng No. 1 High School. If it were true, it would make the front page, so they would definitely send people to investigate. I knew Mandy Chu was brainless. If I kicked her out of the dance performance, it was highly likely she'd come to you, crying and accusing me of bullying her. And just as she came to you, tearfully complaining, the reporters arrived for an unannounced visit. So, the plan succeeded. The reporters would definitely investigate me. Of course, I had prepared everything, and I would ultimately be able to prove my innocence. But Victor Ko, what do you think? After the reporters found out it was a misunderstanding, and I wasn't the bully, would they stop there or continue their investigation? Victor Ko's face suddenly turned blank. I smiled. "You understand now, don't you? I prepared everything just for you." Among the 7 or 8 reporters that day, even if only 2 continued investigating, it would be enough to cause you serious trouble. You should have listened to the Minister of Education. He hates school bullying the most. If your good deeds come to light, your father won't be able to protect you. See, Victor Ko, this is what real scheming looks like. As I finished speaking, still smiling, Victor Ko's expression turned incredibly ugly. The male students around him also lost their composure. "What should we do, Brother Ko? Are the reporters still at school? If they find their way here, we'll be done for. If this gets recorded, it'll be a stain on us for life." These boys were mostly from ordinary families. They dared to follow Victor Ko in doing evil because they felt Victor Ko had strong backing, so nothing bad would happen. But the way the reporters gathered in the conference room that day was enough to scare anyone. At least nominally, I was a daughter of the Ko family, yet my reputation was nearly ruined. Imagine what would happen to others. I orchestrated the entire incident, a classic case of killing the chicken to scare the monkey. I merely feigned being the bully to give real bullies like Victor Ko a terrifying wake-up call. So, my dear brother, please love me, take care of me, and support my work at the Ko Group. I approached Victor Ko with a smile as bright as a flower. Otherwise, I'll drag the entire Ko family down to the grave with me. The smile abruptly vanished. I pressed the broken wine bottle against Victor Ko's neck, then turned and left. From then on, no one dared to stop me. Only Mandy Chu's desperate cries echoed from behind. "Victor, how could you let her leave like that?" His cold and furious voice responded simply, "Get out!" Victor Ko's demeanor had undergone a sudden, drastic change. In the past, he had never allowed me to attend any parties hosted by the Ko family. This time, when he received an invitation to a party, he proactively told Mrs. Ko, "I'll bring my sister along. Mom, please help me prepare a dress for her." Over the phone, I heard Mandy Chu arguing with him. "If you're taking a female companion, shouldn't you be taking me?" Victor Ko's voice was laced with impatience. "I've already funded your studies in Australia. What more could you possibly want?" Mandy Chu's college entrance exam scores were abysmal. In her past life, she had been terrible at studying, always focusing instead on how to ingratiate herself with the Ko family. In this life, Her situation had devolved from an easy path to a hellish one, and her exam results were even worse than before. Her only remaining escape was to cling to Victor Ko and stay by his side. But I could already see that Victor Ko was growing annoyed with her. Mandy Chu had initially captivated Victor Ko with her supposed stubbornness and independence, portraying herself as a pitiable little white flower who couldn't be corrupted by cunning or swayed by wealth and power. But that wasn't her true nature. One could pretend for a while, but it's hard to maintain an act for a lifetime. What Victor Ko truly admired was a humble girl who consistently refused luxurious gifts, not someone who would cry and beg him to take her along when she went to study abroad in Australia. Yet she had no other choice. Mandy Chu could put on an act before, but now she could no longer pretend. She had no other way out. If Victor Ko didn't take her with him, she would truly be trapped and slowly waste away in that suffocating Chu family home. After the summer break, Mandy Chu and Victor Ko went to Australia together. In reality, Victor Ko had never publicly stated that Mandy Chu was his girlfriend, but Mr. and Mrs. Chu couldn't wait. They hired paparazzi to follow Victor Ko and Mandy Chu, snapping photos of the two of them and posting them online. The son of Ko Corporation enjoys an intimate meal with his girlfriend, turns out they're childhood sweethearts. Mr. Ko saw the article and hurled the phone in his hand. How utterly disgraceful. He hasn't even graduated from university yet, and he already wants to bring someone to worm their way into our family? After Victor Ko returned, Mr. Ko thoroughly chastised him. If you want to get married, wait for your parents to arrange it for you. Right now, you can casually find someone for a fling, but don't bring me someone who looks low class at first glance. Victor Ko listened in silence, then glanced at me, sitting to the side. I felt his gaze, but I simply focused on reading my financial report. Mr. and Mrs. Chu had been just like this in the previous life. As soon as Victor Ko showed even a hint of affection for me, they had wanted to drug me and put me straight into the Ko family's bed. As for Mr. and Mrs. Ko, in the previous life, they had also vehemently opposed Victor Ko marrying the daughter of such a humble family. Unfortunately, their lives were brief. Mr. and Mrs. Ko had passed away before Victor Ko ever married. After scolding Victor Ko, Mr. Ko strictly forbade him from seeing Mandy Chu again during the holiday. Victor Ko offered no resistance. He stayed home all day, occasionally acting quite kindly, even buying me a pair of precious diamond earrings as a birthday gift. When I partied with friends and returned late, he would drive and wait outside the bar. Liu Song sat beside me, holding a non-alcoholic drink, watching Victor Ko smoke one cigarette after another outside. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something to me. I reached out my hand to stop her. I know what you're going to say. Don't worry, I know exactly what's happening. After saying goodbye to my friends, I got into the passenger seat of Victor Ko's car. He handed me a bag. I looked down and saw hangover soup along with small pastries from my favorite dessert shop. I smiled. Victor Ko, there's no need. He silently pressed the accelerator. The entire ride was quiet. Back home, I tossed the hangover soup and small pastries into the trash can. Victor Ko stood to the side, watching, saying nothing. I returned to my room, not wanting to bother with him. Liu Song, who was studying computer science at Tsinghua University next door, had recently developed a program that could significantly enhance the efficiency of a company's human resources management. This presented an excellent opportunity to start our own business. I had been an intern in Ko Corporation's strategic investment department for nearly 3 years and had a certain degree of influence. I decided to provide Liu Song with $2 million in capital to co-found a company. She would be responsible for technology, and I would handle the business side. Recently, I had been incredibly busy, so Victor Ko truly wasn't a priority. Unexpectedly, Mandy Chu had seen Victor Ko take me home. She hadn't seen Victor Ko in such a long time that she had waited at the gate of the villa area just to catch a glimpse of him. As it turned out, she happened to see me getting out of Victor Ko's car. I could imagine that at that moment, Mandy Chu felt utterly terrified. She must have seen that scene in her previous life, Victor Ko mockingly demanding that she leave the house empty-handed, only to turn his back and gently put a wedding dress on me. That was her worst nightmare. On Monday morning, I finished my meeting with a potential client and left the client's company building with documents in hand. As a result, I saw a familiar figure at the top of the stairs. Mandy Chu had lost weight. Her cheeks were slightly sunken, and her eyes were heavily streaked with red. Even so, she was still beautiful, with a small, palm-sized face and doll-like eyes, looking exactly like a star ripped from a magazine. Honestly, in the orphanage, Mandy Chu had been the most beautiful child. Almost all families who came to adopt would look at her first. If it weren't for her excessive ambition, she would have been adopted long ago. It was precisely because of this unyielding ambition that she had been unwilling to leave. Walking step by step, Mandy Chu stopped in front of me. She was wearing high heels and looked taller than me, who was wearing flat shoes for convenience at work, by about half a head. Mandy Chu said, "I'm pregnant. It's Victor Ko's." I replied, "Really? Then you'd better not wear such high heels." Mandy Chu stared at my face, trying to find traces of emotional fluctuation, but she found nothing. So, she broke down first. "When it first started, what trick did you use?" "What tricks did you use to snatch my Victor Ko? Clearly, in this life, I'm the one he loves. You should be the one he despises most, and he shouldn't leave you a single cent." Why, in my previous life, did I try every method to win his favor and be obedient, yet he only grew colder towards me? Are there other tricks you're hiding from me that you haven't told me? I watched Mandy Chu collapse, weeping miserably for a long time before simply sighing, "Wait a moment, I have another client." Mandy Chu lifted her head to look at me. "Celia Ko, you're not going to tell me, are you? Does it matter that much?" It was then that I seemed to realize something, but by then it was already too late. Mandy Chu stepped forward, latched onto me, and then threw herself backward. We tumbled down the stairs together. With a loud thud, Mandy Chu and I landed at the foot of the stairs. The back of my head must have struck the railing, plunging everything before my eyes into darkness. My knees ached so severely, I couldn't even move my legs. In the darkness, I only heard Mandy Chu's sobbing cry, "Victor!" Struggling, I managed to lift my head, vaguely making out the figure standing before me. Victor combed me. Blood seeped out from beneath Mandy Chu's skirt. She sobbed as she spoke. "Victor, our baby, it's gone." "Your sister pushed me. She said that once your child was born, she would seize the family assets." Victor Ko's face went ashen. After a long moment, he bent down and lifted me. Mandy Chu's eyes suddenly widened. She stared at Victor Ko in disbelief, a pained cry escaping her lips. "Victor," Victor Ko said coldly. "Mandy Chu, you disgust me." Mandy Chu's entire body trembled. This was her nightmare. In her previous life, Victor Ko had often said the same thing to her. "Mandy Chu, you disgust me." In this life, despite making different choices and taking a different path, why was the outcome still the same? Mandy Chu went mad, screaming, "Why? I clearly made the right choices, the right choices. Why, no matter what I choose, does the outcome remain like this?" I didn't hear her next words. The dizziness from the back of my head grew progressively stronger. The world gradually faded into darkness. The room was filled with the faint scent of antiseptic. I opened my eyes to see Victor Ko sitting beside the bed. He whispered, "Mandy Chu was the one who called me here. She was probably trying to frame you." But I arrived early and overheard the entire conversation. "The priority now is for you to take good care of yourself and not worry about anything else. Also, about Mandy Chu's child, she had drugged my juice." My legs and the back of my head still ached. Yet I still rudely cut Victor Ko off. "Excuse me, what are you explaining this to me for?" Victor Ko was stunned. I pulled the blanket up, saying, "If your parents expect you to take responsibility for this, then you should be explaining it to them, shouldn't you?" "It seems I have no involvement in this matter, do I?" Victor Ko froze for a long moment before speaking softly. "I want to break up with her." An awkward silence settled over the room. I smiled and said, "That doesn't seem to concern me." Victor Ko lifted his gaze to me, a look of profound loss in his eyes. Celia, do you truly not understand what I'm trying to say? I silently met Victor Ko's gaze. His eyes grew increasingly expectant. When his eagerness reached its peak, I let out a loud laugh. Of course I understand. Victor Ko, you are the biggest scoundrel in the world. Victor Ko's eyes immediately clouded over. He remained silent for a long time before speaking in a low voice. I know I've done a great many things wrong, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life begging for your forgiveness. When you first came to my home, I detested you, but for some reason, I couldn't stop myself from caring about you more and more. When you threatened me in the school hallway, saying you'd drag the entire Ko family to hell, I wasn't even angry. On the contrary, I discovered you were completely different from what I'd imagined. Strong, brave, and full of life. That's precisely the person I like. After this gentle confession, Victor Ko lowered his head and mumbled, Recently, I've often dreamed. I dream that I'm about to get married, and the bride is you. In the dream, I hold your hand and say, From now on, what's mine is yours. Celia, we could be very happy, I smiled. Yes, Victor Ko, we could be very happy. Now why don't you go get a drink from the toilet and I'll consider it, all right? Victor Ko chose to leave. He said he knew I couldn't forgive him immediately, but he was willing to wait. After Victor Ko left the hospital room, Leo Song, who had been waiting outside, came to my side. I glanced at her. You heard all that? I did. So, do you have anything to say to me now? May I ask if the client's morning offer exceeded 50% and when the contract can be executed? You're truly heartless. At least you could ask when I'll be discharged, couldn't you? I just asked the doctor at the door. He said the day after tomorrow, and I've already adjusted your next work schedule accordingly. Your next business trip is scheduled for the day after tomorrow. You're not going to let me rest for a few more days? No. I know what's most important to you. Truly worthy of being my partner. With such an excellent business partner, what do I have to worry about not getting rich? After the business trip, I set aside a day to visit Mandy Chu at the hospital. She had lost her child and was confined to her hospital bed, looking haggard, her face gaunt and devoid of any flesh. Victor Ko had broken up with her. During her days in the hospital, Mr. and Mrs. Chu hadn't visited even once. The only visitors were those she never would have expected, the director of the orphanage and a few young children who were also orphans. It was Celia Ko who reimbursed our travel expenses, the director said. Over the years, she has consistently donated money to us. Thanks to her, the conditions of Neo and Vivi have greatly improved. Mandy Chu was stunned. In reality, most children in the orphanage found it difficult to be adopted. They were abandoned, some due to physical disabilities, others due to intellectual impairments, and still others due to incurable illnesses. Compared to them, Mandy Chu and I, both healthy and beautiful, were already considered truly fortunate. At first, the director told us that we were one big family, and all the children were siblings. But after Mandy Chu left the orphanage, she never thought of her siblings again. In contrast, in my previous life, I frequently returned to do volunteer work. After entering the Ko family home in this life, I immediately donated a large sum of money to provide medical treatment and open up a future for children with disabilities. Seeing these children stuttering Sister Celia in front of her, Mandy Chu burst into tears. She cried for a long time. The director of the Welfare Institute told the children to say goodbye to her, but she didn't notice when I had arrived by her side. I calmly waited for her to finish crying. After a long while, Mandy Chu covered her face with her hands and whispered, "You hate me very much, don't you?" Before I could answer, Mandy Chu said, "I hate you too. I just wanted a better life. What's wrong with that?" I thought for a moment and said, "Nothing's wrong." "It's just that you went about it the wrong way." Mandy looked at me. "Do you mean I'm not as kind as you, not as innocent as you, not as lovable as you?" I shook my head. "Not exactly. Mandy Chu, your biggest mistake, in both your past life and this one, was always trying to steal other people's cake. Why would you eat someone else's cake? If you had swapped places with me, how would you know if it was poisoned? The right way is to bake your own cake," Mandy Chu cried and shouted, "What right do you have to criticize me? Didn't you also want a share of the Ko family's assets yourself?" I shook my head. I don't. The $2 million that the Ko family provided had been returned with interest after my company and Leo Songs became profitable. As for the clothes and jewelry Mrs. Ko gave me, I sealed all the valuable items in a safe and meticulously made a list. I hoped to completely separate myself from the Ko family in the future. The reason was simple. The Ko family had gotten rich from real estate. Over the past 30 years, their process of land acquisition and property development had been fraught with fatal accidents and countless illicit activities. Currently, Mr. Ko had ways to suppress these matters, but he couldn't suppress them forever. Holding on to this dirty, blood-stained money, something was bound to happen sooner or later, and those connected to Ko Enterprises would end up in prison. Mandy Chu couldn't comprehend these things. She just stared at me blankly. After a long silence, she murmured, "I lost to you in both lives." I shook my head and stepped closer to her. This was precisely why I had come. I had something to tell her. "Mandy, your entire life you've hounded me, snapped at my heels, treating me as your greatest enemy. But I ask you, was I truly the one who caused you suffering in both lives?" These words struck Mandy Chu like a bolt of lightning. She trembled and sobbed loudly. I turned and left without looking back. Time flew by. On the day my company with Leo Song went public, I saw the news. In front of the Ko Enterprises building, Mandy Chu stabbed Victor Ko with a knife. Leo Song was beside me. She saw the news too. The news reported that Mandy Chu had been arrested by the police, while Victor Ko was being rescued, his life hanging by a thread. Leo Song merely glanced at it before looking away. I deliberately teased her, "Why didn't you ask if I was worried about Victor Ko?" She replied, "You're not." "But he really loved me, didn't he?" Leo Song said expressionlessly. "Celia Ko, in this life, I'd sooner believe you took out a usurious loan than fell in love with a rotten scoundrel like him. And also, let me see the draft of the press conference later. I think your writing has at least 6 errors. All right, class monitor." The Global Business Conference was about to commence. Under the bright lights, the conference host began to read the opening statement. Leo Song and I, as the youngest and most renowned successful businesswomen, were about to step onto this stage. Countless spotlights shone upon us, innumerable cameras focused on us. Leo Song wore a snow-white suit, appearing coolly competent, poised, and outstanding. The unassuming weeds that had quietly sprung up in youth had finally transformed into resilient pines and cypresses, standing firm against the fiercest blizzards. As for me, I wore a gentle and elegant black silk dress adorned with pearls. Having endured the long, dark night, I could finally behold the stars. "Leo Song, are you nervous?" "Never mind, artificial intelligence doesn't get nervous. I asked a redundant question." Silence fell around us. A moment later, Leo Song took my hand, passing the warmth from her palm to mine. "Celia Ko, don't be nervous." The curtain rose. Our names appeared on a large LED screen. Leo Song and I walked hand in hand towards the stage, welcomed by thunderous applause. Afterward, my company and Leo Song's continued to grow stronger. Victor Ko didn't die. He was severely injured, but after emergency treatment, he passed out of critical condition. That was good. For the evil deeds the Ko family had committed, someone needed to remain alive to pay the price. Mandy Chu went to prison. She wrote me a letter saying that if she ever had the chance to be free, she wanted to return to the Welfare Institute and volunteer to care for the children. She said she hoped to use the rest of her life to atone for her sins. At the end of the letter, she called me sister. A complex emotion welled up within me, and I put the letter away. The little ones at the Welfare Institute gathered around me. "Sister Celia, what are you looking at?" I shook my head. "Nothing. Today, Leo Song and I came to the Welfare Institute to meet with the director. We were establishing a charity fund in the company's name to help children who weren't adopted, and also to provide further support for adopted children facing difficulties. The sun was shining brightly. The weather was good. Finally, we had stepped into the future we had always longed for. End of main story, epilogue. Leo Song always felt she was someone without friends. At this school, the pretty ones played with the pretty ones, and the rich ones played with the rich ones. Liu Song was neither pretty nor rich, and she had a very peculiar personality. She knew no one would like her, so she lived a very quiet life, until a certain little friend kept coming to find her. "Class monitor, why are you wearing long sleeves on such a hot day?" "Class monitor, you're clearly very talented at dancing. Why didn't you perform when the dance teacher asked you to?" Truly annoying. She couldn't bring herself to answer any of these questions. Liu Song could only remain silent. Her silence was taken by that friend as indifference. The friend left disheartened, but came back a few hours later. "Class monitor, explain linear equations to me. I'll treat you to spicy noodles." Liu Song. In reality, her friend's family situation wasn't much better. Her father seemed to be a school janitor, and her mother was a cleaner. Slightly better than her own, but only just. Not to mention Leo still had her grandmother to care for, while her friend's parents didn't pay much attention to her. But this friend was different from her. She was charming. Everyone in class liked her, and it was rumored that a wealthy heir from the neighboring class was fiercely pursuing her. Liu Song would sometimes ask idly, "What do you think of him? I heard he likes you." Her friend chewed on her pen while doing math. "I don't want the affections of a degenerate." Though they didn't interact much, her friend seemed to have discerned Liu Song's family circumstances. "Class monitor, please take this money." It had taken her friend a long time to save enough to hire a tutor. Leo couldn't imagine where she'd managed to save that money. Liu Song refused to accept it. She was poor, but her pride was unyielding. "I haven't done anything to earn it, so I can't take your money." These were, in fact, the only substantial conversations they ever had. Liu Song dedicated herself to her studies, believing that getting into university was all that mattered. Her academic performance was excellent. She harbored hopes of being admitted to Tsinghua and Peking universities. If she performed well, admission would be all but guaranteed. After that, she would be able to earn money, buy medicine for her grandmother, and perhaps even find that friend and truly befriend her. However, 1 month before the university entrance exams, her father returned home with devastating news. "Your grandmother won't live much longer." A profound chill permeated Liu Song's very bones. Her father was drinking, still muttering to himself, "If the illness can't be cured, why keep wasting money?" The doctor said there was only a 30% chance of success with surgery, so I refused. Bringing her home would just keep draining money, so I threw her out into the hospital corridor. "Damned old hag, always a burden on me." Liu Song's ears rang. From her school bag, she pulled out her last wad of cash, the tuition money she had painstakingly saved for university. She ran to the hospital to save her grandmother, but her father blocked her way. "My dear daughter, do you still have money?" he sneered. "Your old man was being chased by creditors yesterday. Why didn't you bring it out then?" Liu Song struggled desperately, but she was too frail, her limbs as thin as bean sprouts. No matter how she thrashed, she had no strength left. Her father snatched her money, then beat her mercilessly. "Damn you, you ungrateful wretch," he snarled. "I gave you life. If I beat you to death today, you deserve it." Liu Song passed out. When she regained consciousness, her father had taken the money and was gone, presumably out drinking. She raced frantically back to the hospital. The familiar doctor shook his head regretfully as he told her the news. Her grandmother had passed away. "What happened to your right hand?" the doctor asked, noticing Liu Song's hand. Liu Song looked at her arm. It was broken, bent at a grotesque angle. Anyone could tell it was irrevocably damaged. She refused the doctor's suggestion to get an X-ray and trudged home alone. On the way, a girl stopped her. The girl, wearing gold-rimmed glasses and a crisp white shirt, looked remarkably elegant and appeared to be about Leo's age. "Would you like a do-over?" she asked. The girl seemed to be saying something else, but Liu Song couldn't hear clearly. Finally, the girl handed her a slip of paper with a number written on it. "If you want a do-over," she explained, "text your name, date of birth, and address to this number. I can give you a fresh start." Liu Song sat on the rooftop, pondering the girl's words. A fresh start. What would happen if she took it? She had truly tried her best in this life. Would a fresh start truly be better? Perhaps this chance should go to someone who needed it more. With that thought, Liu Song pulled out her phone. As class monitor, she had access to the contact information for the entire class. She searched for her friend's information. Everyone said that because she refused to be the wealthy heir's girlfriend, her parents had locked her in her room and beaten her savagely. It was a truly pitiable situation. Let her have a fresh start. She was so strong. If she had the chance to live again, she would surely carve out a much better life for herself. Liu Song lifted her phone. Her right hand was broken, so she painstakingly typed out her friend's information with her left hand. The message sent successfully. Liu Song let out a sigh, a mix of despair and a faint sense of relief, a small blessing, given in her final moments. Then, she jumped. Liu Song awoke. She remembered jumping from the building, yet found herself waking up in a bed. A jumble of indistinct memories swam in her head, unclear whether they were forgotten dreams or fleeting recollections of a past reality. This couldn't be real. After all, an ordinary person like her wasn't worthy of rebirth like the protagonists in those cultivation novels. Therefore, it must be a dream. The alarm clock blared, and Liu Song rose to prepare for school. A major event occurred at school that day. The eldest young miss of the Ko family had transferred to their class. Liu Song vaguely recalled having dreamed this exact scene. In the dream, the eldest young Miss Ko was being bullied in the restroom. Leo had approached her, offered a towel, and urged her to report the bullying, but the girl had simply waved her off. "Report?" she'd scoffed. "That's my brother!" So this time, Liu Song had no intention of meddling. She simply offered the towel and turned to leave. However, the eldest young Miss Ko called out, stopping her. "Class monitor!" Liu Song's footsteps halted. In that moment, she realized this voice had appeared repeatedly in her dream. The eldest young Miss Ko seemed to be an unusually friendly person. She invited Liu Song to dinner and enlisted Liu Song as her tutor. Liu Song tutored her only twice before realizing that the eldest young miss was, in fact, even more proficient than her. She was merely going to great lengths to find a reason to give Liu money without hurting her fragile pride. Liu Song had never cried since childhood, but at that moment, her nose stung faintly. Thanks to young Miss Ko, Liu Song now had a substantial amount of savings beyond her living expenses. She secured a spot at a reputable hospital for her grandmother's surgery, and the operation was a success. As for her father, he was admitted to the hospital under mysterious circumstances. Liu Song went to question young Miss Ko, wondering if she had a hand in it. Young Miss Ko feigned ignorance for a good while, her lips trembling uncontrollably like a machine gun. Liu Song was speechless. She might be quiet, but she was by no means foolish. Later, Liu Song's father was discharged from the hospital, only to immediately encounter trouble with new creditors. The bone that had been previously broken somehow fractured again, this time piercing his heart. It was rumored that when he was found to have a slim chance of survival, Liu Song proactively signed the documents, voluntarily waiving further treatment for her family. Liu Song scattered her father's ashes into a squalid ditch and hired a nurse to care for her grandmother. After resolving these two great burdens, she achieved her cherished dream and was admitted to Tsinghua University. She had so many things she wanted to do. For instance, Miss Ko said she wanted to start a business, and she hoped to be her partner. Later, the contents of her dream slowly became clear, Liu Song recalled. It turned out that Miss Ko was the little friend from her past life. In this life, she had indeed changed her destiny. Her choice had proven worthwhile. Afterward, Liu Song asked Celia Ko, "In your past life, what event made a particular impression on you?" Celia Ko was slightly puzzled. "There were so many. Which one are you referring to?" Liu Song said, "It wasn't really an event, but rather just a scene." That day, two little girls in simple school uniforms were running in the morning as dawn was breaking. They were the earliest to arrive at school and also the hardest working. Their long, barren youth felt like a dark winter night, without an end in sight. The thin, short-haired girl could no longer run and wanted to stop. So another long-haired girl ran to her side, taking her hand and leading her onward towards West V. The sun rose higher and higher, and the world was about to be bathed in light. Will we truly all have bright futures? Absolutely. Now, Leo Song and Celia Ko stood hand in hand under the spotlight. It no longer mattered whether she remembered now, for the promise had been kept. They were indeed standing in the future they had once dreamed of.